The 1970s were a decade of contrasts, the oil crisis, strict regulations, but also the most luxurious, extravagant, and expensive American cars ever built. In this video, I'll take you through those true jewels on wheels, from presidential limousines to massive convertibles and exclusive hand-built models, cars that cost fortunes back then and are worth even more today. If you're a true lover of American classic cars, automotive history, and those designs that will never be repeated, this journey is made for you. So before we begin, hit the like button on this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. Because what you're about to see isn't just a list. It's a time capsule into the golden age of automotive luxury, 1975 to 1979. Cadillac Seville. When you think of Cadillac, the first things that usually come to mind are enormous limousines, endless hoods, and cars that look like luxury yachts sailing down the road. But by the mid-1970s, Cadillac dared to break with its own tradition and introduce something completely different. The Seville, its first compact luxury model. And while it was smaller than its bigger brothers, it wasn't smaller in ambition. This car was designed to conquer a new kind of customer, the sophisticated younger driver who wanted distinction, but in a more practical and modern size. Launched in 1975, the Seville marked a turning point for the brand. Its design was elegant, with straight lines and more contained proportions, carrying a style that echoed European cars of the era, especially Mercedes-Benz, which was beginning to capture the North American market. Cadillac wasn't about to let imported luxury steal the spotlight, and the Seville was their answer, an American car with international refinement. Inside, it was still a Cadillac through and through: leather upholstery, automatic climate control, power steering, power windows and seats, top-notch sound insulation, and an atmosphere that wrapped the driver in exclusivity. Mechanically, the Seville used a 350 cubic inch V8 supplied by Oldsmobile, paired with Bendix electronic fuel injection, a technological innovation for the time. Its output hovered around 180 horsepower, more than enough for a car that prioritized smoothness and comfort over raw speed. This wasn't a muscle car. It was a luxury automobile in a reduced format, with technology as its banner. Its original sticker price was $12,479 in 1975, equivalent to over $65,000 today. Surprisingly expensive for its size, it even cost more than some of Cadillac's larger models. But that was exactly the point: to prove that luxury wasn't measured in inches of bodywork, but in refinement and distinction. Buying a Seville was paying for modern exclusivity. Here's a fun fact. It was the first Cadillac in decades to be developed with direct input from European engineers, and its success was immediate, so much so that it became the best-selling Cadillac of its era and opened the door to a new generation of compact luxury cars in the United States. 1971 to 1973 Buick Riviera. In the early 1970s, as the American auto industry balanced the opulence of the 60s with the looming clouds of the oil crisis, Buick decided to take a bold risk with a design that still divides opinions today. Thus was born the 1971 Riviera, nicknamed the Boattail, for the unmistakable shape of its rear end, inspired by classic 1930s sports cars and land speed racers. It was daring, futuristic, and absolutely unique in American production. The Riviera was already a prestige model within Buick's lineup, but with this redesign, it became a symbol of audacity. Its silhouette was long and muscular, with an endless hood and a roofline tapering into a sharp, boat-like tail, hence the nickname. Some considered it a masterpiece of design, while others saw it as extravagant excess. One thing was certain: it left no one indifferent. Under the hood roared a 455 cubic inch V8, producing anywhere from 250 to 330 horsepower, depending on configuration. It was a massive power plant that delivered strong acceleration, though the reality was that the car's heavy weight and new emissions regulations were beginning to take some edge off the numbers. Still, driving a Boattail Riviera was a visceral experience, a mix of muscle and class that was hard to imitate. As for price, the 1971 Riviera started around $12,940, the equivalent of over $70,000 today. It wasn't cheap. Placing this Buick directly in competition with Cadillac and Lincoln, the goal was clear: to impress as much when parked in front of a country club as when thundering down the highway. Here's a fun fact. The Boattail's design came from Bill Mitchell, GM's legendary head of styling, who wanted to pay homage to the Corvette Stingray of the 1960s and a classic speed cars. While its sales didn't reach Buick's lofty expectations, today the Riviera Boattail is considered a design icon, a car that represents the bold, unapologetic aesthetics of the 1970s like few others. 1977 Oldsmobile Toronado XS. This model didn't just offer luxury and power, it had one stunning detail that turned it into an instant cult car. Its panoramic glass roof with a curved rear strip, a design feature that seemed to open the car up to the sky. In the middle of the automotive industry's experimental era, the XS was conceived as a showcase of innovation. Its presence was imposing, with long proportions, a commanding grille, and sharp lines that emphasized its bold personality. But what truly set it apart was that semicircular rear window wrapping around the trunk, providing not only uncommon visibility, but also a distinctive look recognizable from any angle. Under the hood, the Toronado XS carried the robust mechanics of the lineup, a 403 cubic inch V8 producing 185 horsepower, or the optional 455 cubic inch V8 with over 200 horsepower, both paired with a 3-speed automatic transmission. While the power figures may seem modest for its size, the magic was in how smoothly it delivered force, moving tons of steel and glass as if they weighed nothing. The original price of this exclusive model was $13,500, equivalent to more than $61,000 today. A considerable sum for the late 70s, but justified by the technology and bold styling it represented. Here's a unique and fascinating fact. The Toronado XS's panoramic roof was designed in collaboration with American Sunroof Corporation, making it one of the first mass-produced glass roofs ever fitted to an American car. It wasn't a mainstream hit, but it was an experiment that foreshadowed trends we now take for granted in many modern luxury vehicles. And what about you? Would you have dared to drive a car with such a futuristic panoramic roof back in the 70s? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to hear it. 1970 to 1971, Lincoln Continental Mark III. The early 1970s brought one of the most fascinating battles in American luxury cars, the rivalry between Cadillac and Lincoln. And it was in that arena that the Continental Mark III appeared, a car created with a crystal-clear mission: to steal the spotlight from the Cadillac Eldorado and prove that Lincoln could build a luxury automobile with character, strength, and unmistakable style. The Mark III was first launched in 1969, but it reached its peak with the 1970 and 1971 models. Its silhouette was unmistakable, long, elegant, with an endless hood and a front design dominated by a Rolls-Royce-inspired grille. It was a declaration of classic power, a car that commanded respect wherever it appeared. For many, it represented Lincoln's triumphant return to the top of the luxury market. Inside, it was a sanctuary of comfort. Electrically adjustable leather seats, real wood trim on the panels, air conditioning, stereo radio, and exceptional sound insulation turned the Mark III into a space where every trip felt like an experience. But what truly defined its character lay under the hood. There sat a massive 460 cubic inch V8, producing 365 horsepower. The Mark III was no lightweight, but that engine allowed it to move with surprising ease, delivering a driving experience that was both powerful and majestic. Its price in 1970 hovered around $14,750, equivalent to over $75,000 today. It was an expensive car, but Lincoln wasn't aiming to build something cheap. It was aiming for exclusivity, something worthy of standing toe-to-toe with the best. And it worked. The Mark III became a sales success and the model that saved Lincoln's reputation in a critical moment. Fun fact, it was the first car designed under the supervision of Lee Iacocca, the legendary executive who would later revolutionize the industry with the Ford Mustang and Chrysler minivans. 1974, Chrysler Imperial LeBaron. When Cadillac and Lincoln seemed to completely dominate the American luxury market, Chrysler decided to remind the world it still had something to say. It did so by reviving its most prestigious brand, Imperial. And with it came one of the most exclusive and handcrafted cars of the decade, the Imperial LeBaron. This car wasn't designed for mass sales, but rather to make a statement. Chrysler could indeed compete at the highest level of refinement and status. The LeBaron was a car of imposing proportions, stretching over 18 feet long with a majestic grille, an ornate front end, and hidden headlamps, a detail that reinforced its aura of distinction. Every line of its body seemed sculpted to convey authority, without excess, but with the quiet strength of a car that didn't need to prove its greatness to anyone. Mechanically, the Imperial LeBaron was powered by a 440 cubic inch V8, producing 215 net horsepower, paired with Chrysler's legendary 3-speed torque flight automatic transmission. Even though emission regulations had reduced power numbers, the engine still delivered generous torque that moved the LeBaron with dignity, prioritizing smoothness and comfort over raw speed. In terms of price, the 1974 Imperial LeBaron cost around $15,200, equivalent to more than $83,000 today. That placed it squarely among the most expensive cars in America at the time. It was an investment in exclusivity, a vehicle bought not out of necessity, but for status. Fun fact, the Imperial LeBaron was one of Chrysler's last attempts to keep the Imperial brand as a standalone mark. Production was limited and carefully executed with an almost artisanal approach. Today, the few surviving examples are prized relics of a time when Chrysler still dreamed of having a true rival to Cadillac and Lincoln. 1976, Cadillac Eldorado Convertible. At a time when regulations, the oil crisis, and practicality were beginning to reshape the market, this car was an act of resistance, a monument to uncompromising luxury. Visually, it was imposing. At over 18 feet long and weighing more than 2 tons, this Cadillac stole the scene on any avenue. Its design, with straight lines and a grille that looked like a chrome wall, radiated strength and grandeur. And when the top folded down, its silhouette transformed into an open-air spectacle, the kind of car that turned any drive into a personal parade. Under the hood, the Eldorado was powered by a colossal 500 cubic inch V8, the largest engine ever installed in a mass-production American car. Its output hovered around 190 net horsepower due to emission regulations. But what really mattered was the massive torque that moved this giant smoothly, delivered to the pavement through its front-wheel drive layout. It was brute force dressed in elegance. The original price was $16,500, which equals over $85,000 today. Cadillac marketed it as the last of the great American convertibles, a campaign that instantly turned this model into a collector's item. While convertibles would return years later, none carried the same symbolic weight as this Eldorado. Fun fact, Cadillac built over 14,000 units of this model, and many buyers purchased them to store away untouched, convinced it would become a guaranteed investment. They were right. Today, it remains one of the brand's most sought-after luxury classics. And now, I'll ask you directly, if you had the chance to choose one last great convertible for your garage, would it be this 1976 Eldorado or another icon of the era? Tell me in the comments. I want to know which car you'd pick for your final open-air farewell in luxury. 1977 to 1979, Lincoln Continental Mark V. Launched in 1977, this car was the epitome of what an American luxury automobile meant in that decade. Massive in size, drenched in chrome, packed with features, and absolutely unmistakable. It wasn't just a car, it was a status symbol, a rolling manifesto that shouted success from every angle. The Mark V was immense, 19.2 feet long and nearly 2 tons in weight. Next to it, many other luxury cars looked compact. Its hood seemed endless, and its side profile was as straight as it was elegant. The Rolls-Royce-inspired grille dominated the front view, while its hidden headlights reinforced its sense of modernity and sophistication. And if all that wasn't enough, the abundance of chrome turned it into a rolling mirror, reflecting the shine of an entire era. Mechanically, the Mark V came with a 400 cubic inch V8, rated at 179 net horsepower, or an optional 460 cubic inch V8 with around 210 horsepower. Its power wasn't meant for speed, but for moving this colossal machine with serenity and majesty. Driving it felt like piloting a luxury yacht on wheels, quiet, comfortable, and commanding. The original price hovered around $17,000 in 1977, the equivalent of over $80,000 today. It was one of the most expensive cars in the country, but buyers weren't just purchasing a vehicle. They were buying a symbol of success, the last great Lincoln before the industry was forced to downsize its dimensions and ambitions. Fun fact, despite its size and price, the Mark V was a sales hit. More than 228,000 units were built in just 3 years, proving that even in the middle of the oil crisis, there was still a market willing to pay for excess and ostentation. 1970 to 1976, Cadillac Fleetwood Series 75 Limousine. When we talk about automobiles that weren't just means of transportation but true symbols of power, the Fleetwood holds a privileged place. During the first half of the 1970s, this Cadillac was the preferred choice of presidents, top executives, and high-ranking diplomats. It was much more than a car. It was an extension of the Oval Office, a rolling boardroom, a pedestal of luxury and authority, gliding through traffic with absolute solemnity. The Fleetwood 75 stretched over 20 feet in length, placing it among the longest production cars in the world. Its presence was impossible to ignore, an imposing grille, perfect proportions, and an aura of instant respect. Seeing it pull up to a hotel or government building was like witnessing an act of silent power. Cadillac designed it for exactly that purpose, to be the calling card on wheels of those who had already reached the top. Inside, the experience was simply unmatched. Rear seats with more than enough room to cross your legs, the finest leather upholstery, genuine wood trim, adjustable lighting, and in many versions, a partition separating the chauffeur from the passengers. The original price of this model was around $18,000 in 1970, the equivalent of more than $95,000 today. An astronomical sum for its time, but appropriate for a vehicle whose target audience was not the average citizen, but the political and business elite of the United States. Fun fact, many of these limousines were custom-built directly at the factory to meet their owners' specific needs, with unique configurations in colors, upholstery, and equipment. Each one could be considered almost a handcrafted piece within Cadillac's production line. And now, I'll ask you, if you had the chance to take just one ride in a presidential limousine like this, where would you want to go? Leave it in the comments. 1971 to 1979 Stutz Blackhawk. This car wasn't built on mass production assembly lines. Each unit was handcrafted, assembled on the base of a Pontiac Grand Prix, but so heavily transformed that little of the original model remained. Its bodywork was an exhibition of excess and sophistication, an elongated front with a vertical chrome grille, round headlights mounted on prominent fenders, and a side profile that blended drama with elegance. Everything about it screamed exclusivity, from the gold-plated details to the wire wheels. Mechanically, the Blackhawk was fitted with Pontiac's 455 cubic inch 4.8 engines, capable of producing between 360 and 425 horsepower, depending on configuration. Its performance wasn't about competition, and it didn't need to be. This was not a car measured in seconds, but in presence. It was a machine built to be admired, not timed. The original price hovered around $22,500 in 1971, an astronomical figure for the era, equivalent to more than $140,000 today. It was the most expensive American car of the decade, designed for an ultra-exclusive niche of millionaires and celebrities who wanted to stand out even within the elite. Fun fact, Elvis Presley was the very first buyer of the Stutz Blackhawk, and he was so in love with it that he ended up owning several. His first example was delivered in 1971, and he proudly drove it himself, proving that this was not a car for chauffeurs, but for owners who wanted to be seen. And there you have it. The most expensive American cars of the 1970s, a decade of excess, contrasts, and luxury taken to the extreme. From presidential limousines to exclusive models only superstars could own, each one was a symbol of status and of a lifestyle that will never return. But now it's your turn. If you could choose just one of these giants to keep in your garage, which one would it be? Drop your answer in the comments. Your participation isn't just a detail, it's what keeps this community alive and what unites us as passionate lovers of classic cars. And if you want to continue this journey through American luxury, don't miss our previous video in the series, The Most Expensive American Cars of the 1960s. There you'll discover how the fever for excess began, a fever that reached its peak in the 70s. Trust me, you won't want to miss it.